Hey guys, my name is Seth Springs, and I am from Warrenton, North Carolina. And I did my book reports on Adoniram Judson from this little book here, To Be the First, by William McElrath. But that's Adoniram Judson. This is quite possibly the best book I've ever read, and I'm not saying that because this is a video presentation for the class I had to read it for. But I've recommended it to family members. My wife is reading it now, and so if you have some time this summer, man, pick this up. It's awesome. But it tells about the life and ministry of Adoniram Judson, who had a dream to be the first something. He was a preacher's son from Massachusetts, and just grew up and had a mind for learning, and had dreamed of being president, dreamed of being a great leader, and all these things. But he quickly found out that God had other plans for his life. But you see that throughout, God never takes his ambitious spirit away. And so that leads him to be the first American missionary. And he goes to Burma, and spends over 30 years in Burma, just pouring his life out for the Lord. And so it was a book, a life of faithfulness to the missionary task, to figuring out what God has called him to do, and then him following through with it. A phrase that was common throughout the book was Adoniram toughed it out. He went through a lot of bad situations. He lost him and his wives. He had 3 wives during his life. 2 of them passed away. 1 of them survived him. And so, yeah, so he loses 2 wives. He also loses a handful of children on the mission field. He himself goes through lots of sickness, both going by boat across sea from the United States to Burma, back and forth, a lot of sickness there. He would end up being buried at sea, which is very telling of his life. Another thing that he toughed through because of his desire to please God, for God's glory, and to reach the nations, was that he was in a death prison for a little while. The people there suspected him of being a spy, and a British spy, and so they put him and a lot of the other Americans in a death camp under suspicion of them being spies. And so he was there for almost 2 years, and almost died several times, goes through extreme pain, was beaten, and really heavy persecution that he would not have experienced if he would have played it safe, stayed at home, and lived the American dream. And so that can be learned from. That this man said, Jesus is worth living for, Jesus is worth dying for. And he didn't just say that, didn't have that on a t-shirt or a coffee cup, but he lived it out. And so he's there for 30 years. During the first 5 years, they don't see a convert, which is wild to me. You know, if I'm somewhere and I go 5 years and don't see any fruit from it, I'm going to be thinking, God, why am I here? But then they have the first convert 5 years after, and in the next 6 months, they have 10. And when the book was written, the amount of Baptist Burmans was crazy, like over 35,000, which is pretty wild, because one man was willing to go spend his life, pour his life out for the Lord. Burmans know Jesus. He also spent a lot of time learning the language, something he didn't know going in. He goes in, learns language on the field. He ends up translating both the Old Testament and New Testament into Burmese, the Burmese language. And he also does a dictionary, both of those which at the time of writing were still in print. And so you can only imagine how much that would help missionaries who go to Burma, Americans who desire to minister to the Burmese people, all because, again, he chose to tough it out, to go spend his life for the glory of God and the good of the Burmese people. And so that was something that it convicted me. what is God's calling on my life, and am I that sold out to do it? And so I encourage you, again, it's by William McElrath, to Be the First, The Adventures of Adoniram Judson, the first American foreign missionary. So check it out, read it, and I bet you that you'll benefit from it greatly.